People don't respect him. People fear him. That thought was swimming around my mind tonight as me and Detective Price spent additional overtime at the station for a 2-month-old case. You'd find us every other night over the past few weeks, shortening a pack of cigarettes and brewing a pot of coffee. Every so often, Price would pour us either some bourbon or scotch. That's especially so tonight, as the clouds poured over our window-bricked building that I felt engraved in. There are only a few places in this world where I feel comfortable, where I feel in control, where I can predict every action and plan my next move. Those places are the station here in Philly, my '95 white Corvette, and my home. I've put in the time and work, although never have I ever felt like I could choose between working smarter or harder. Regardless, my performance has paid off. Enough accolades to make any vice cop blush. Same goes for Price. The case we've been working on, a syndicate where each member is like a poltergeist, seemingly floating in and out of the spot of the crime. No printer fibers detected. Victims consist of either previous gang members or they were active gang members upon the scene. Though I suppose everyone is a former anything once they become a corpse. Despite revolving around seedy hangouts and gathering any information I can from the underground world, I balance work and family time very well. I received a welcoming phone call from my mother. My brother and my parents, along with some family friends, are gathering together over the next few days, and they invited me over to visit home in Burlington. I cut the evening a bit short with Price and decided to take a few days for leave. I guaranteed Price our investigation would never turn into a cold case. Before I traveled north, I called up an old pal of mine from middle school who lived just south of Bridgewater. We talked about finding some time to run into each other again. That was over 5 years ago. It's overdue, and I figured I'd spend maybe a day or two with him before seeing my family. As I traveled several hours north and just 25 minutes outside of Bridgewater, an unsettling, out-of-the-ordinary figure was laying off to the side of the road. A corpse of a man. I would not say he was lying peacefully. I felt obligated to stay at the scene. I called the local police to secure the perimeter, and I waited for them in the nearby tree line, away from my car in any instance the perpetrator wanted to revisit. They usually do. If this is connected somehow in any way to mine and Detective Price's case, well, now they're starting to get a little sloppy. As the long night turned to the early morning dew hours, I decided to stay at a nearby motel. This way, after a couple hours of rest, I can reconnect with the local police department and perhaps find any link to this crime with my case in Philly. Just like all roads that connect in America, the underground lifestyle can have straight-shot freeways, and anyone could succumb to it at any place in any matter of time. Moon Motel, a place where you can get a piping hot pizza delivered to your door in 25 minutes from the back motel kitchen. A strip club if you took the next right and drove a half a mile down, and if you brought back the entry ticket from the strip club to the Moon Motel, you could get half off your stay for one night. I suppose that would be a great deal for those one-night escapades and rendezvous. Inside one of the rooms, the smell of damp cigarette smoke invites the nostrils into reminding you that hundreds of other people were here before, and every bad habit they had stuck between these four walls. I have certainly done better. The neon sign outside, advertising grilled steak, just below the name of the motel, projected a red light directly into my room like some capitalist demon invading my privacy, as if I didn't pay enough for this 300 square foot dilapidated upset. Above me, mold stains of previous leaks from rainstorms looked as if a moldy monster would spring out of the ceiling, infecting and turning me into black goop. The remote for the TV needed new batteries, but you only had 3 channels to switch between if you ever got up and changed the channel yourself on the TV. The weather channel was the only non-static one. The door was a bit too large for the frame, so to close it all the way, you had to lay your shoulder into it, which made me feel like I would break it after 4 tries. The brochure sure didn't mention any of this shit. Luckily, the sheets appeared to be clean. Once I woke up with not such of a sore back as I thought I would have from this place, I made my way back to the crime scene I was at last night. Some police officers and 1 local detective were there, and I got all the pertinent details they were able to gather over the past 10.5 hours about the victim. I called Bryce in Philly to tell him about this crime to see if there's any possible link. After that, I called up my friend I was going to meet up with and told him I would have to visit him tomorrow instead of today, as I was focused on this murder that happened last night. The only break I can catch are breaking murder cases, though this one in Philly proved tough. I decided to stay 1 extra night in this pitiful place. Maybe it will grow on me 1 more night. After 1 long day connecting any pieces that I could with this recent murder to anything in Philly, despite its seemingly long shot, I wanted to rest my mind and call up my mother from the motel phone. But as I was planning to, the motel phone rang. Hello?
Detective Vector Speedway. Your brother. Grave danger.
Who is this?
Harlem Rogue. Don't let your brother succumb. It may be too late though.
Harlem? I'm not sure what that phone call was all about other than mentioning my brother. Vector Speedway. Well, I'm familiar with that place, as we went there as kids back in the day, me and my brother, and I've heard he's taken his vehicle over there to race a couple times, but that was a few years back. Well, I'm not the only one with a brother, and maybe they just had the wrong number. Curious as I was, though, I walked over to the motel office and asked the woman if she gave anyone my motel room phone number. She said no. I returned to my motel room and called up my mother to inform her that I was likely going to be there in 2 days. As we talked for 5 minutes, I decided to ask about Devin, my brother. And she told me he went to the racetrack tonight. Vector Speedway. I began to feel frantic as I recalled what that muffled voice said to me over the phone about my brother earlier tonight. Mom, I'm going to head over there right now, over to Vector Speedway. I got a call about him being there, but I think... Well, look, I'm not sure, but I have to go see him, and I'll probably see you later tonight. I hung up the phone quickly, and I paid the motel lady. I got into my vehicle and popped smoke, headed north, like a bat out of hell. Like a bull on parade, nothing will stop me. My family is in danger, and if I was ever going to unleash all of the hellacious horses out of this Corvette, there's no better time than now. All gauges glowing on my nighttime Autobahn, like a fighter pilot who can't take off, but doesn't need to. I blasted through the clean, thin air on balanced tarmac. But once I approached the muddied track of Vector Speedway, it wasn't just the soil that seemed to be the sinking feeling. My heart felt to have buried its way further through my body, into a seemingly bottomless pit after what I realized I was witnessing. Another corpse attached to a rope. This wasn't my brother lying here lifeless, but this was his car, with the rope attached to the back of it that dragged this now deceased man. I felt every fluid in my stomach begin to churn as if to clump together and escape out of my mouth, revealing a bloody ball of sickness. What was happening before I got here? How long was this man dragged around? Was my brother actually the one behind the wheel of this vehicle, dragging this man, and for how many laps? Forever will that last question be rhetorical. My brother's hat was propped up on the dash of the vehicle. I'm sure he didn't think I'd show up here. But where is he? Where is Devin? I contacted the local police, and I never made it home to see my mother. I just knew Devin is responsible to the crime at Vector Speedway, and I had the authorities onto him. I drove back to Philly and went to the station to talk to Price so we can start piecing some information together and traveling with one another. From the mysterious phone call at Moon Motel, I had a feeling that I was being tracked. As I sat down at my desk to start determining where my brother could be next and how to approach him to start questioning him, Price had this somewhat worried and upset look on his face. Price said to me, "You showed me photos of you and your brother before, and he's had that white cowboy hat on." I acknowledged him. And then he said, "Well, you need to take a look at this tape." And he handed me a cassette. Written on it was a timestamp. I put the cassette into the television player and went to the timestamp. There he was. Devin. He was here early this morning, inside our police station. How did he... Did any intrusion alarms go off this morning? I asked Price. He shook his head no, and I turned back to the TV to watch the recording further. Price said he had a firearm with him too. Yeah, I responded. That's his shotgun that he bought about a decade ago, I think. I was with him when he bought it. Well, without this video, there is no other evidence that he was even here. No dispatch officer downstairs saw him enter or leave, and no garage cameras picked him up either, Price said to me. I took a sip of coffee from my mug. I wasn't thinking of it, but the coffee in my mug was from a few days ago, since I last left the office. What met my lips was coffee that was so cold, unwelcoming. I felt disgusted with what I was seeing on the television and what I was tasting. I felt sick, inside and out. Well, I told Price, as I managed to consume bitterness, we know that many of the victims have had shotgun pellets recovered from their bodies with this ongoing case we've been working on. I mentioned that Devin took his vehicle joyriding at Vector Speedway, and it's been impounded, though he's still mobile if he's here in Philly. He could be driving his truck around, Price stated, although I didn't see it in the parking lot at the racetrack, so it's possible he may be traveling with others, I told Price. I wish he would just pick up his phone at home and speak to me, but that's just wishful thinking. Price asked me, "Where do you want to start first?" I responded to him by saying, "Let's head north. Surely we will find something at his house. As we headed to my brother's house, it was charred, burnt down. Nothing but a blackened pile of debris. 18 years went by. There was nothing that we found that traced to my brother, and I have never heard from my brother or seen him. The last image I saw of him was from that security camera in our police station. That was it. My family never heard from him either. My mother had passed, never hearing from her older son Devin for all that time. My sister, no clue. As a detective, I pay the heaviest price. I should be the one with the answers. I should be mitigating the amount of crimes by bringing justice to those who are guilty and locking them away for life, even if it's my own family. But I feel locked up, contained in my own personal hell, out of control, with no answers for crimes that happened years ago, and some of which continue to turn up with no evidence anywhere. At any moment, I believe my brother could show up, and perhaps he is watching me from a distance. I reached over my coffee table and took a sip of coffee that must have been sitting there from earlier today, for the coffee was cold. And it brought me back to that moment in the police station with Detective Price. I promised Detective Price this wouldn't turn into a cold case. That was one promise I never kept.